There is a reason ambitious men become lonely before the world respects them. It is not because they are broken. It is because their future has become incompatible with their environment. It is not because they are cursed. It is not because no one can ever understand them. It is because the man they are becoming can no longer survive inside the life they were trained to accept. But there is a dangerous trap here. Loneliness does not automatically make a man powerful. Some lonely men become disciplined, some become bitter, some build proof, some build an identity around being misunderstood. Some become addicted to the wound because the wound gives them an excuse. It lets them say, "Nobody supports me, nobody sees me, nobody understands me." And because that story feels true, they keep repeating it until it becomes a prison. So the real question is not, why am I alone? The real question is, what is my isolation producing? Because if your isolation produces nothing, it is decay. If it produces only resentment, it is poison. If it produces only fantasy, it is self-deception. But if it produces discipline, skill, proof, and leverage, then it was never loneliness. It was power under construction. Most men think success makes you lonely. That is the lie. The truth is colder. Loneliness comes first. Power comes later. Before a man rises in public, he separates in private. Before the money appears, the old conversations begin to die. Before the status arrives, the old friendships begin to feel too small. Before the world calls him disciplined, his family may call him distant. Before people say, "I always knew he would make it," they quietly wonder why he is changing. This is where most men break. Not because the work is impossible, not because they lack potential, not because they were born weak. They break because they cannot tolerate being misunderstood long enough to become undeniable. They want the reward of transformation before the evidence of transformation exists. They want respect for the man they feel inside, while the world can still only see the old results outside. They want people to believe in the future version of them, but the world does not honor invisible fire. The world honors proof. And this is why Machiavelli matters. Machiavelli understood something sentimental people hate. Men do not judge potential. They judge visible power. They do not respect your private hunger. They respect what your hunger has built. They do not care how badly you want to win. They care whether your actions have made you useful, valuable, difficult to ignore, and difficult to replace. This is why the unsupported man must stop begging to be understood. Understanding is not the beginning of power. Understanding is often the reward for proof. There is a line from Machiavelli that cuts directly into this truth. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. That is the condition of every ambitious man before success. You know what you are becoming, but they only see what you have produced so far. You feel the standard rising inside you, but they still see the old evidence. You feel the distance forming, but they call it arrogance. You feel the future pulling you forward, but they accuse you of changing. And listen carefully. Sometimes when people say, "You changed," what they really mean is, you are no longer easy to control. They do not always hate your ambition. They hate the mirror it places in front of them. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your focus exposes their distraction. Your silence exposes their need for noise. Your refusal to explain yourself exposes how much they still depend on approval. This does not mean they are evil. It means groups protect familiarity. Your family may love you, but love often protects the version of you it understands. Your friends may enjoy you, but groups often punish the first man who tries to leave the cave. Your environment may praise hard work, but only as long as your hard work does not threaten the emotional comfort of the group. Your old identity has social value. People know how to relate to the old you, the version of you who was available, the version who laughed at the same distractions, the version who answered every message, the version who explained every decision, the version who needed permission before moving, the version who stayed inside the emotional boundaries of the tribe. But when a man begins to change, the group feels it before he can prove it. He becomes less available, more focused, less reactive, less interested in empty noise, less willing to trade his future for belonging. Then the accusations begin. You changed. You think you are better than us. You are too serious. You are obsessed. You never come around anymore. But ambition always creates distance before it creates respect. Not because you hate them, not because they all hate you, but because your standards have started to separate from their rituals. The man who studies after work while others escape into entertainment will eventually become strange to them. The man who builds in silence while others announce fantasies will eventually feel distant. The man who stops explaining himself will eventually be called cold. But this is not cruelty. This is the cost of direction. And if you are serious, you must understand the first territory of power. Attention. Your attention is the first territory of power. Before anyone controls your money, your labor, your emotions, or your decisions, they capture your attention. The apps capture it. The group chat captures it. The old friends capture it. The need to be seen captures it. The fantasy of being supported captures it. The habit of checking who watched, who liked, who replied, who approved, who ignored you captures it. And when your attention is scattered, your life becomes easy to rule. This is why loneliness can become useful. Not because solitude is magical, not because being alone makes you superior, not because isolation itself is noble, but because silence gives your attention back to you. And a man who recovers his attention can begin to build. If you are serious about changing, listen closely. You may be watching many videos, you may be collecting ideas, quotes, principles, and philosophies, but if your life is not moving, then consumption has become another form of delay. If you continue like that, you will know the language of power while still living without it. Inside Patreon, I go deeper into the unfiltered doctrines behind discipline, solitude, leverage, and human nature, with content made for men who are done entertaining themselves with motivation. The decision is yours. Now look at Steve Jobs. He helped build Apple. Then he was forced out of the very company he created. The man who helped build the throne was removed from the court. Most men would have turned that into a wound. They would have repeated the story for years. They would have explained how unfair it was. They would have made betrayal their identity. They would have demanded sympathy from people who could not change the outcome. Jobs did something colder. He turned exile into structure. He built Next. And years later, Apple acquired Nexty, bringing Jobs back into the company he had been pushed out of. The technology from NeXT became a foundation for Apple's future operating systems, and Jobs eventually returned to leadership. That is the first lesson. When they remove you from the table, do not beg for another seat. Build something the table cannot survive without. That is not motivation. That is leverage. And leverage is the language power understands. A weak man wants the people who rejected him to apologize. A strategic man makes their rejection expensive. A weak man wants the old room to admit it was wrong. A strategic man builds a new room with stronger walls. A weak man keeps explaining why he deserved a chance. A strategic man creates proof so visible that explanation becomes unnecessary. This is the difference between loneliness that destroys a man and loneliness that sharpens him. The lonely man who only thinks becomes heavier. The lonely man who only complains becomes smaller. The lonely man who only imagines revenge becomes trapped inside the same people he claims to have outgrown. But the lonely man who builds begins to change the rules. He converts silence into attention. He converts attention into discipline. He converts discipline into skill. He converts skill into proof. He converts proof into leverage. And once a man has leverage, the world begins to speak to him differently. Not because the world became kinder, because he became harder to ignore. Machiavelli would not tell you to beg men to see your heart. He would tell you to understand how men judge. They judge what they can see. They judge appearances. They judge outcomes. They judge force, value, usefulness, and consequence. So give them something to see. Do not tell them you are changing. Change. Do not tell them you are serious. Produce. Do not tell them you are different. Become difficult to ignore. Because early ambition is fragile. Early discipline has no armor. Early goals are easy to poison. If you expose the seed to people who only respect fruit, they will laugh before it grows. So build in silence, not forever. Long enough for your work to develop teeth. Long enough for your discipline to become visible. Long enough for your skill to become useful. Long enough for your proof to become undeniable. This is not hiding. This is strategy. The world does not owe respect to invisible transformation. The world responds to evidence. This is why the unsupported man must kill the need for emotional permission. Do you want power, or do you want to be reassured? Those are not the same path. The man who wants permission keeps explaining. The man who wants power keeps building. The man who wants permission asks, "Do you believe in me?" The man who wants power asks, "What proof can I create this week?" The man who wants permission feels wounded when people doubt him. The man who wants power uses doubt as information. He studies the gap. What is missing? Skill, proof, money, positioning, visibility, consistency, a stronger offer, a sharper mind, a more disciplined body, a clearer signal. He does not romanticize rejection. He extracts data from it. Because rejection is not always injustice. Sometimes rejection is the market telling you that your signal is weak. Sometimes silence is not oppression. Sometimes silence is feedback. Sometimes people are not ignoring greatness. They are ignoring a man who has not made his greatness visible yet. That truth hurts, but it also frees you. Because if the problem is proof, then the solution is construction. And construction is under your control. Now look at SpaceX. The first Falcon 1 launch failed. Then the second failed. Then the third failed. 3 public failures. 3 moments where the crowd could point and say, "This is not working." 3 moments where doubt became visible. And this is the part most men never understand. The crowd mocks process, then worships results. They laugh at the launch pad, then respect the orbit. On the 4th attempt, Falcon 1 reached orbit. It became the first privately developed, fully liquid-fueled launch vehicle to do so. Pressure. Repeated public failure. Action. Keep building. Keep correcting. Keep launching. First proof. Orbit. Power lesson. One undeniable result can silence years of doubt. That is how the world works. People do not respect your suffering. They respect the moment your suffering becomes evidence. They do not respect your lonely nights. They respect what those nights produced. They do not respect your discipline while it is invisible. They respect it when it becomes a body, a business, a skill, a result, a reputation, a number, a system, a body of work. So stop asking the crowd to understand the launch pad. They will understand the orbit. This is why loneliness becomes dangerous when it has no output. A man can sit alone for years and still become nothing. He can avoid people and call it focus. He can stay silent and call it mystery. He can reject help and call it independence. He can hate society and call it wisdom. But if nothing is being built, he is not in solitude. He is in decay. Real solitude has evidence: a stronger body, a sharper skill, a finished project, a portfolio, a business attempt, a portfolio, a business attempt, a sales call made, a video uploaded, a debt reduced, a habit killed, a measurable result. If your loneliness is not producing proof, it is not making you powerful. It is only making you harder to reach. That sentence should disturb you, because many men do not want solitude. They want a noble excuse for inaction. They want to say, "I am alone because I am different," when the truth is that they are alone because they are not building anything useful enough to change their position. Difference is not power. Output is power. Pain is not power. Proof is power. Potential is not power. Leverage is power. And the unsupported man has to become brutally practical. He cannot afford fantasy. He cannot afford to waste years waiting for the right people to appear. He cannot afford to make abandonment his religion. He cannot afford to sit in the dark calling himself chosen while his habits remain weak, his skills remain vague, his income remains fragile, and his future remains dependent on people who do not respect him. So what should he do? He should build the system. First, convert silence into attention. Remove the noise that gives you the illusion of connection while stealing the energy needed for construction. Less scrolling, less explaining, less arguing, less checking who viewed your story, less emotional gambling with people who do not carry your future, less performing for people who will not pay the price with you. Your first job is to reclaim your mind. A man without attention cannot build power because he cannot stay with anything long enough for it to compound. His mind is rented by every notification, every opinion, every insult, every desire, every cheap pleasure, every old conversation, every memory of rejection. He calls it stress. But often, it is occupation. His mind is occupied territory. An occupied territory cannot become a kingdom. Second, convert attention into discipline. Discipline is not a mood. Discipline is repeated. Obedience to a chosen future. Same hour, same place, same work. Even when no one sees it. Especially when no one sees it. This is where the invisible phase begins. And the invisible phase is not punishment. It is training without spectators. Most men fail here because they confuse intensity with discipline. They work hard for a night. They get emotional. They make a promise. They feel a surge of anger. They imagine proving everyone wrong. Then the feeling disappears, and so does the work. That is not discipline. That is emotional weather. Discipline begins when the weather changes and the work remains. Third, convert discipline into skill. Not vague self-improvement, not endless consumption, not another saved video, not another quote. A real skill. Sales, writing, coding, 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 video editing, artificial intelligence systems, fitness coaching, design, speaking, negotiation, business operations, something the market can measure, something that can produce income, status, usefulness, or leverage. If no one opens doors, build a skill the door needs. A skill changes your relationship with the world. Without skill, you ask. With skill, you offer. Without skill, you hope someone notices you. With skill, you become useful. Without skill, loneliness feels like abandonment. With skill, loneliness becomes a workshop. Fourth, convert skill into proof. Proof is the weapon against invisibility. A portfolio, a case study, a client result, a published body of work, a published body of work, a measurable transformation, a product, a service, a system, a result. Because if no one will vouch for you, your work must testify. Do not say you are disciplined, show the record. Do not say you are serious, show the output. Do not say you are talented, show the result. Do not say you are becoming powerful. Show what changed because you were there. Proof is the bridge between who you know you are becoming and what the world is forced to admit. Fifth, convert proof into leverage. Leverage means options. Money gives options, skill gives options, reputation gives options, a body of work gives options, an audience gives options, savings give options. A strong network gives options. Options are the beginning of freedom. Without options, you are not independent. You are merely hoping your dependency remains comfortable. That is why loneliness must be used, not worshipped. You are not here to become a lonely philosopher with no output. You are not here to become addicted to your wound. You are not here to make abandonment your personality. You are here to transform abandonment into command. If you are serious, and I mean serious, not entertained, not inspired for a night, not collecting harsh truths like decorations, then look at the pattern of your life. You may be watching a lot. You may be thinking a lot. You may even understand a lot. But if your proof is not growing, you are not moving. If you continue like that, years will pass and you will become a man who knows powerful ideas but still lives under weak conditions. Inside Patreon, I share the deeper, unfiltered material for men who want to turn attention into discipline, discipline into skill, and skill into leverage. The decision is yours. Modern psychology has a colder name for part of this. Grit. Not motivation, not emotion, not the fantasy of being special. Grit is the ability to stay attached to a long-term future after the feeling has died. That matters because power is not built by emotional intensity. Power is built by sustained direction. The long road without applause. The same work repeated after boredom begins. The same standard kept after nobody notices. The same correction made after failure exposes weakness. The same future chosen after comfort invites you back. Boredom is where power hides. Not in the public announcement, not in the fantasy of proving everyone wrong, not in the dramatic speech you give yourself at midnight. Power hides in the repeated night. The same desk, the same notebook, the same gym, the same skill, the same offer, the same correction, the same refusal to quit. This is why the lonely phase feels so brutal, because nothing is giving you feedback yet. Your family may not understand. Your friends may not respect it. The market may not reward you. The algorithm may not notice you. Your bank account may not move. Your body may not look different yet. Your skill may still be clumsy. Your mind will whisper, maybe they were right. That is the real test. Not whether you can work when you feel inspired. Not whether you can fight when people are watching. Not whether you can speak boldly when the room supports you. The test is whether you can continue before the world gives you evidence that it was worth it. The weak man returns to the crowd for comfort. The strategic man stays with the work until the work becomes proof. And once proof appears, the social world changes. The same people who doubted you become curious. The same people who ignored you start watching. The same people who called you obsessed begin asking how you did it. But by then, something colder has happened. You no longer need them to understand. That is power, not revenge, not bitterness, not showing off. Power is when the old audience no longer controls your emotional state. Power is when their applause arrives too late to matter. Power is when you can look at the silence that once hurt you and say, "This built me." But do not misunderstand. A powerful man does not need to hate people, he needs to understand them. He understands that loyalty is conditional. Attention follows perceived value. Respect follows proof. Support often arrives after momentum. And love, even when real, can still become a cage if it demands that he remain understandable. So he stops demanding that ordinary people bless an extraordinary path. He stops explaining the blueprint to people who have never built. He stops asking small maps to approve large journeys. He begins quietly, precisely, repeatedly. He turns the night into construction. He turns rejection into data. He turns discipline into skill. He turns skill into proof. He turns proof into leverage. And leverage becomes freedom. That is the path. No rescue, no permission, no applause, no fantasy that someone is coming. The day a man understands that no one is coming is the day dependency begins to die. So stop asking why successful men become lonely. Ask why powerless men are so afraid to be alone. Because solitude removes the excuses. No crowd to blame, no family to convince, no friends to impress, no one to perform for, just you, your standards, your work, your weakness, your future. That is why most men run back to noise. Noise protects them from the truth. Silence exposes the gap between what you say you want and what you actually do, the gap between the man you imagine and the man your habits are building, the gap between your anger and your evidence, the gap between your ambition and your proof. And if you can stand inside that silence without escaping, you can begin the work that makes you formidable. Not loud, not dramatic, not desperate to be seen. Formidable. The kind of man who no longer argues about his potential because his life has become evidence. The kind of man who does not need to be understood early because he is building something that will explain itself later. The kind of man who knows that loneliness is not the enemy. Wasted loneliness is the enemy. So use it. Use the silence. Use the doubt. Use the nights they wasted. Use the rejection. Use the fact that no one is coming. Use the fact that nobody believes yet. Use the fact that your environment cannot see your future. And build anyway. Because if your isolation produces nothing, it is decay. If it produces discipline, it is training. If it produces skill, it is transformation. If it produces proof, it is leverage. And if it produces freedom, it was never loneliness. It was power under construction. No support, no network, no applause, no permission. Build anyway.